Many of us are just embarking on frost season. For others, you've been at it for a while. What really ticks off gardeners, though, are those late frosts or freezes that might happen in March, April, or May. We're talking with Quentin Young. He's a master gardener and knows his fruit trees. And he gives us some very good advice for protecting your deciduous fruit trees in case of a March or April or May frost or freeze. We recorded this back in March of 2022. Joining us today, master gardener, it is Quentin Young. And Q, we get an email from Jeremy, who lives in Anderson, California, which is in the northern end of the Sacramento Valley, about halfway between Redding and Red Bluff. And he probably has a beautiful view of both Mount Lassen and Mount Shasta. And he has a rather cold question. He says, what is going to be the effect of the freezing temperatures we've had in the valley lately on my fruit trees during bloom? We had a very warm January and February this year. This caused my fruit trees to bloom about 1 to 2 weeks earlier than normal. Towards the end of February, we had an unseasonable cold spell for a few nights with overnight lows around 28 degrees, while most of the trees were in full bloom. This caused many of the flowers to appear to die. What's the general impact on freezing during bloom? It's too late for me to do anything about it now. However, I was curious if I should have done something to protect the trees, knowing those cold temperatures were coming. Well, Q, you've had personal hands-on experience with similar questions like this as being one of the co-managers out at the Fair Oaks Horticulture Center's orchard. You had to contend with basically the same situation.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, you did a great job of describing where this letter writer lived, because it really comes down to where do you live and understanding your microclimate. So at the Hort Center, we have a citrus row that's next to a fence. So to us, it's somewhat protected. We did not cover them this year. And then further into the orchard where it's a little bit warmer, we'll probably see a little bit of frost damage on the flowers, and those blossoms will fall off. And so that's just something you're going to have to deal with depending on where you live.
What is the end result? Does it mean no fruit or just a little bit of fruit coming up for the summer?
A reduction in yield, and that's just a general, it depends. Like I just walked through the nursery and I noticed that, for instance, some of the plums, even though they're in full flower, you can see some flowers that were frost damaged and they fall off as soon as you touch them. So they're not going to be producing fruit this year. But there's still quite a bit of very happy, healthy-looking flowers on the trees. So I think it'll be just a reduction in yield. But to me, that also means less fruit that you have to thin if you're going to properly thin your fruit later in the year.
Will that fruit tree try to set buds again, or is on fruit trees, on deciduous fruit trees, and that's what we're talking about here, not citrus, but deciduous fruit trees, is one blossom, is one bloom it for the year?
I would say you should expect that. I mean, you might be lucky. It might rebloom, but I wouldn't count on it.
All right, and you can't trick it into reblooming by lightly pruning it?
I mean, you could try, but depending on where you prune it, how lightly you prune it, you may end up just cutting off some more blossoms as well.
So, Jeremy, the first part of your answer would be good luck. Enjoy the few fruit you may get. Now, the second part of his question was, what can I do to stave that off, knowing that there might be colder temperatures in the future? And by the way, we're still in winter here in the Sacramento area. We've had frosts as late as the last week of March. And wherever you are in the country, you probably are in the same boat, just in a little different time frame. You may get surprise freezes in April or even May and have the same issues with your deciduous fruit trees. Hello, free subscribers to the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter and podcast. We have a lot more tips for you for protecting your deciduous fruit trees from a surprise frost or freeze as winter melts into spring. But first, you need to become a paid subscriber. Among the topics Master Gardener Quentin Young and I talk about after the paywall in the podcast, we include the best frost protection techniques for the flowers on your deciduous fruit trees. We talk about the benefits of frost cloths, but we have a warning. Don't leave them on the tree for too many days. We'll tell you how many. And we talk about the importance of water when a frost or freeze is anticipated late in the season for the flowers on your deciduous fruit trees. Besides the complete podcast, paid subscribers also get access to the entire library of newsletter editions, which now numbers close to 300, and paid subscribers also get the full corrected transcript of the podcast for those of you who like to read fast instead of listen slowly. Plus, your paid subscription lets me know that I'm doing something worthwhile here that you find of value, even if perhaps it's only occasionally. The Beyond the Garden Basics podcast and newsletter comes out twice a week on Mondays and Fridays. Some are for paid subscribers, some are for everybody. So thank you for becoming a paid subscriber. Just click on the subscribe link in the newsletter to keep the good research-based gardening information coming your way. And don't forget that when you do, you'll get the entire podcast and the complete newsletter, including the transcription. So thank you for listening and reading the Beyond the Garden Basics newsletter and podcast.